Welcome back to Entrepreneur Money Stories. Today, I am welcoming to the show Lindsay Pinchuck. She is an award-winning entrepreneur, consultant, community builder, connector. Boy, will you hear that. Storyteller, expert marketer, social media maven, spokesperson, on-air expert, small business champion, and mom. Today, we're talking about Lindsay's experience in building her business through community and partnerships and her experience in selling that business. Now, I have heard so many stories from our clients over the last 10 years from Kickstarter County Inc. about not understanding the option to be able to sell our businesses. When we are tired, frustrated, and are ready to move on to the next phase of life, we don't have to walk away from the community that we built. We don't have to walk away from our business and our brand. There are options available for us to sell our business, to be able to not just make money, right? But continue the brand that we have built past our life experience with that brand. So you'll hear Lindsay's experience in how she built that business. And I want you to listen carefully to the way that she develops partnerships through organic marketing. And now that's what Lindsay helps entrepreneurs with today is organic marketing and partnerships. But I want you to listen to the small pieces of that story and how she built her first business, and then listen carefully to the experiences and how she sold the business. Our mission here on this podcast is to be able to learn from one another. So let's listen to Lindsay, the experiences that she had, the lessons that she learned, so that none of us make that same mistake. I want us to be open-minded that when the time is right, that we are able to embrace selling our business. However, using the tools and strategies that we're learning on this podcast to be able to take those lessons and experiences with us. All right, here is my conversation with Lindsay. Lindsay, welcome to Entrepreneur Money Stories.
It's so great to be here. Thanks so much, Danielle.
I'm really excited to talk about your journey. I have talked a lot about the idea of selling your business on the podcast. And so I know that you have experience in this and then starting over as a brand new business owner. So I'm sure you have a lot of things that you are doing differently this time around. So I want to hear about that, but I want to take a step back and go back in time. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what your mission in the world is today, and then we'll take the story backwards from there.
Yeah. So my mission in the world today is to support female founders on their entrepreneurial journey. And I do that through my own podcast, Dear Founder, which you're going to be on. And then also through my marketing consulting agency, Lindsay Pinchuck Marketing and Consulting. I coach as well. And every so often I'll host a class, but that's a little few and far between. I really like the one-on-one work, but really and truly, I want to empower women who are building businesses to grow them and build them and scale them for as little money as possible. I had my own company that I started in 2010 before social media existed. It ended up becoming one of the largest parenting communities in the country. We were reaching 3 million people a month online. We were doing thousands of events. We were working with brands like Target and Nordstrom, Unilever, The Honest Company, like really big partnerships. And I built it all literally from organic, cost-effective, community-centric marketing strategies. So that's what I teach to my current clients, and that's what I apply to my current clients' marketing strategies when I go into their business and shake things up a little bit.
I've heard you say several times that you started that business with a $500 budget. And I love that you talk about that so often, because I think it can be a hurdle for a lot of business owners to say, I need funding. I need more cash flow in my business in order to take the next opportunity. I think what you did there was really grow organically and not having to wait for that next cash infusion.
No, absolutely. And there was no cash infusion. I mean, at the very beginning, I'd never intended to become a founder. So, I mean, that was not in my world. I had
accidental entrepreneur.
I had an amazing career that I loved in advertising sales. I worked at the Hearst Corporation for Good Housekeeping magazine. It was like my dream job. And I started this because I wanted community for myself when I was pregnant. And so it was not an on-purpose thing. There was no funding. There was no, so every single thing that came in went back into the business. And I think that's a really big part, obviously, of being an entrepreneur is knowing what to spend your money on, knowing who to hire, when to pay someone before you pay yourself. I mean, all of those things were definitely strategies early on that helped me to build and grow my business. But I think the biggest misconception from a lot of business owners is that you need funding or you need $1 million marketing budget. And you don't. I mean, you absolutely do not. And in fact, I've had 2 clients this week, one of whom has never done paid ads. And we've been working on this very strong partnership marketing strategy that has grown her business so much in the last 3 months. And then I had another client that I talked to who recently scrapped all of their online ads. They're a product-based company. They scrapped all of their online ads and simply have been moving forward with partnerships. She said there's been no difference to her bottom line. So I share that because I think it's so important for your listeners to know that there are things that you can and should be doing that, yes, it might take a little time, but nothing is an overnight sensation. Nothing. Even if you think it is, it's not.
It's not. It never is. All right. I want to touch on all of that and all the ways that you partner with your clients now and some action steps that people could take today. But I want to go backwards because I don't want to step over the fact that you are an accidental entrepreneur, because I cannot tell you how often I hear that from our Kickstarter Kind of Inc. clients, that they were awesome practitioners, right? They went into business because they were awesome at their craft. And suddenly they were in business having to do the business side of business. So were you working full time when you started that company?
I was. So I was working full time at Good Housekeeping and I was pregnant. So
a little bit going on. Just a few things.
I was pregnant but really what happened was we lived in the city of Chicago and my husband and I are not from here and we didn't have, family here and none of my friends were pregnant at the same time as me. And I said to my husband, I need some pregnant friends because no one wants to hear me talk about this. And I knew that, I mean, like everyone's like, oh, how are you feeling? How are you doing? But like really and truly, no one really cares. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of like
they don't know what you're going through. There's a bond.
And it's a pleasantry, right? So like no one wants to hear about like my fat ankles and my itchy stomach. And I was like, I need to find some people. And so I started hosting events. I mean, that's really like how it started, but it was totally on accident. So I was hosting these events and I was working. I was kind of traveling too a little bit because I traveled for work and I was pregnant. But I will say, and I think this is like a funny part of the story, my husband and I are very opposite when it comes to like our sleeping schedules. And he wakes up super early and he falls asleep super early. And he used to just fall asleep on the couch. So I always tell him like, you're the reason that I was able to start this company because he would fall asleep on the couch every night at like 8, 9 o'clock. And I don't go to bed until like 12 or 1 even still. And so I would have like 4 hours to just like work because he was sleeping. And so that was a really big chunk of time. And I got a lot done for my business.
That's hysterical. When I started Kickstart, that was me. I would stay up really late and I loved working at night.
Me too.
And now I'm with your husband. I go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Now that my kids are older, they're staying up for another few hours and I'm like, sorry guys, I'm going to bed. Good night.
I still stay up late. I love that time to myself where no one's bothering me, where I'm not hearing, from anyone. I feel like I'm very productive during that time.
Yeah, I take that morning chunk of time where it's quiet. So I hear you on that. All right. So you were an accidental entrepreneur. So you didn't start the business thinking that you were going to ultimately sell the business. So you didn't have any of those strategies in mind as you were growing.
No, none of them. And, it was one of those things that I really did, build one day at a time. And I was very strategic about how I built based on where I was in that moment, right? Like we started the business, I would work with various brands and they would give me products for like giveaways and gift bag items. And I used their names and their participation to leverage more participation from other brands. Ultimately, what happened is a few months down the road, brands were turning to me and they were saying, well, can we pay you? We want a bigger activation. We don't just want to do a gift bag or a giveaway. And because my background was in ad sales and sponsorships, I knew how to build these programs. And so I started putting programs together. And it was one of those things that everything we did was a building block to the next thing. And, ultimately Target reached out and they wanted a program from us. And so we were able to bring in our experts and bring in the brands that we worked with to build this program. And then Nordstrom reached out to us and we were able to leverage all of our past experiences for Nordstrom. So, I say that because no, I didn't have a plan or the experiences in, necessarily in place or the strategies in place, but every single thing we did was used to do something bigger.
I could hear somebody saying, well, isn't that just lucky for you? Nordstrom and Target just reached out to you. I've been knocking on Whole Foods door for 5 years. What was it that made those brands reach out to you?
It was not luck. This was not a lucky situation. And because in both situations, I'll tell you exactly how both situations went down. In Minneapolis, so I ended up having a mom from Minneapolis who wanted to host events for Bump Club. And she ended up becoming one of my longtime employees, Katie. She's amazing. And so Katie was hosting events in Minneapolis. And obviously in Minneapolis, you have Best Buy, Target, General Mills, all their employees live there. And what happened was one of the employees at Target came to an event, got wind of an event, and they brought this back to Target and they started watching us. And they saw that we were working with so many of the brands who were sold in their stores, and they saw the community that we were building. So when they reached out to us, it was a woman at Target, Ann Wessing. She's not there anymore, but I credit her for helping our business so much. She was a huge champion of Bump Club. And
have you told her that?
Yes, she knows. But she wasn't even a mom at the time. But everyone at Target had a side project. Okay. So this was like, Anne did something else. I don't even know what she did at Target. And this was like her side project. So she had like 2 full-time jobs. And her project was to build community surrounding the baby registry experience at Target. Well, we were the community for parents and parents to be.
Yeah.
And so we took what we were building and we created a program that was community driven at Target. And we leveraged a lot of the brands we were working with. So it wasn't like just out of nowhere, Target reached out to us. We were working with a lot of their brands. Same thing with Nordstrom. So what happened with Nordstrom is there were some executives that saw me and my work husband, Jamie Grayson, who was my partner in that endeavor, on a stage somewhere. We used to like give talks at trade shows and whatnot. And we were talking about an event series that we did for a Bump Club. It was a Bump Club event series called Gearapalooza, and all of the high-end baby gear brands were involved. A week later, I got a call from Nordstrom, and the woman on the other end of the phone, Inez, said to me, we want to host Gearapalooza. And I said, no. I said, you can't host Gearapalooza because Gearapalooza supports local baby stores across the country, and I'm not pulling the plug on that and taking that away from them. And she said, well, we're going to be carrying all these brands. We want to do something with you. What can we do? And so we created a custom activation that didn't compete with Gearapalooza. In fact, we were so particular that when we were in LA for Gearapalooza, we were not in LA for Nordstrom until 6 months later, so that it did not hit the same pregnant women. And ultimately, we built this program. It was a 2-year, 24 event program that we did with Nordstrom. And it all stemmed from the fact that we were working with Up a Baby, Bugaboo, Stoka, Four Moms. They wanted to leverage our relationships with the brands, and they wanted us to bring our community into their stores.
So what I hear the trend of is community and relationships with small business owners on the ground.
Yes, 1,000%. And I think the other trend is like, you have to start somewhere. So like at first, like I said, we weren't charging brands to come into our event. We had to prove ourselves and prove our concept first. And then people wanted to pay for us because they were like, well, I got to get in front of these people and I need to box out my competition.
How long were you in this business for?
I sold it in the start of the 9th year. So, and then I was there for 2 years. So I was actually at the business for 11 years.
Okay. I want to dig in a little bit to the actual acquisition and how you made that determination. Was there any point as you were running the business that you started to think, I should change the way I'm operating the business, looking at the numbers, doing anything different? Or what did this look
not
like?
really. Okay. So this is funny. So not haha, but like ironic, I guess, in a sense. So no, I am not a numbers person. That's why I hired you and your team. So, I mean, and that you guys were my first hire for my second company because of that. I'm not a numbers person. I'm really bad at seeing like the projections and like, I just, that's just not my thing. I'm a marketer. And so I had a couple of different financial people over time, and none of them were amazing. And I ended up deciding to make a change and bring in someone new. And part of why I brought in someone new is because I wanted to start seeing the numbers a little bit differently. And I wanted to get into a place where I could sell or I could start reaching out to people. And I didn't know how to do it. I just had no idea how to even prepare that kind of report or presentation.
What made you even think about that? Like,
so I had in my head that I wanted to either get investors or sell it, ideally sell it by the time I turned 40. And a large part of that was because this was a life stage business. And I was the face of the brand, and I could have been the face of the brand for a very long time, but it got to a point that I felt very weird talking about strollers and car seats and whatnot, and I wasn't using them. A very big part of how I built this business was my own experience as an expectant parent and as a parent. And that's why people loved it, because I was so authentic, and I'd be like, no, that doesn't work. Like, that product is terrible, or that's the best product, and this is why. And I wasn't being paid by these brands. Like, it was just really me using them. And so when I wasn't using the products anymore, I found myself like reflecting on past experience, but the products were changing. And so it just felt like there was a disconnect. And I also
can I borrow your babies for the day so I
Right?
could try this out?
And I also felt very disconnected, like with the women who were coming to the events. Like, I was talking to them in a very different way than I was, 5 to 8 years prior when I was like in it with them. I was kind of like in it ahead of them. And I didn't want to be the face of that brand anymore.
How old were your kids?
During the acquisition, they were 6 and 9.
Okay.
So, but I knew that I wanted to get to that point. And so that was kind of my benchmark, was 40. And so I brought in this woman who was a fractional CFO, I guess. And she started doing my bookkeeping. She got everything organized because there were some blips on the radar there. And then she started running reports. And actually, while we were like kind of getting this set up, I was approached by 3 entities on LinkedIn within like a 12-week period. Very weird. The whole thing was just like, we weren't even shopping it around. We were like talking about it, but we weren't. And so at that point, she helped me to get everything in order and helped me to vet out these buyers or potential buyers potentially to sell. So that's kind of how it came about.
You weren't seeking it out. So you weren't going to Biz Buy Sell or any of those types of organizations.
No.
Yet. However, you were open to it. Like, you had the idea that you were open to it. How long were you thinking about just being open to the fact that somebody could, and that them approaching you?
I would say probably like 7 years in, I was like, okay, like, I'm ready to potentially take this to the next level. Like, I really could use some money. Like, it wasn't for marketing. It was just like, I wanted more people. We were running a lot of events. I was traveling all over the country. Like, I couldn't clone myself. It was crazy. Like, my employee, Katie, was doing all of the Target events. I was doing all of the Nordstrom and Gearapaloozas. It was like nuts. I was traveling 2 to 3 times a month, and I had young kids. And I just like needed more bodies and help. And so I needed more money. And we wanted to grow and become a household name. And so that's kind of when I realized like, I need to figure something out. It wasn't just this, like, I want to be done with this, because I never really wanted to be done with it. Like, I knew that I could have run the business and the strategy for the business forever if I had wanted to. And so, but really and truly, from the time that I was approached, so that was like the summer of 2018. It was so quick. It was such a quick thing. Like, there were 3 people who reached out. The first one, right away, we entered these conversations. The second one was some spider who bought Scary Mommy, and they ended up wanting an acqui-hire, and they wouldn't sign my compete and my non-disclosure. And
okay.
Like, they wanted me to come to New York, and I was like, well, I'm not coming out to like share my secret sauce with you. And so we ended up parting ways. And then the third one was never really a contender to begin with. But because all these people reached out, I was like, oh, like, clearly I have something here. And the reason I went with Advantage and that I continued to pursue them was they were like, we want you, we want your team, we want your brand, we want your assets. Really, they just wanted my target relationship, but like, they took everything. You know what I mean? So like, whereas like some spider wanted me, not my brand, not my team. They just wanted me to come do what I was doing at Bump Club for them,
Oh,
start a whole new brand. And I was like, that's not going to happen,
yeah.
like, so this felt like a very good opportunity. And it was very clear they wanted to get it done fast. And truthfully, in that moment of like time with Bump Club, I was just so tired. I like had been bootstrapping this company for 8 years. Sometimes I didn't pay myself, sometimes I did. I always took care of my employees first. I had one employee who like she never invoiced me and I didn't know because my financial person wasn't telling me, and then she hit me with like a $50,000 bill.
Whoa.
Like it was crazy. And like she was in breach of contract, which he was like, well, she was in breach of contract, she wasn't invoicing me. But I was like, but I wouldn't have like the whole thing was just like a mess, you know what I mean? And so I was just like done. I was tired. I wanted to like not be responsible for everyone else.
Have you heard yourself saying, I'm scared to invest money in my business because what if it doesn't come back? I don't know how much to pay myself, so I won't take a paycheck yet. I'm reinvesting in the business anyway. How about I'm not going to spend any more money until I know exactly where my money is going? Let me tell you, you are not alone. In fact, we have heard all of these stories and more throughout the last 9 years at Kickstart Accounting Inc. And that is why we have created the Money Mindset Mastery Framework to finally unlock and overcome these stories, to finally feel confident in your financial decisions and pay yourself what you deserve. The first step to create a profitable and successful business is to first understand your money mindset. Find out your money mindset personality type by going to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz. I can't wait to hear what your money mindset type is. All right. So I'm thinking of our listeners who, I mean, we talk to so many entrepreneurs who I know that they can feel themselves in your shoes at that moment, but it's scary, right? Like it is scary to think about selling your company. It's scary to think about going through due diligence. Can you give people an idea of the type of information that they asked you for as you entered into due diligence and how much time it took you?
Yes. So a lot of the due diligence stuff was done by Michelle, who was my fractional CFO, because again, like I had like no idea how to run these numbers, but she and I would sit together and run these reports and whatnot. I mean, they wanted like every piece of financial information. They wanted my contracts. They wanted like, we had so many different revenue streams, like because we were hosting events that had ticket sales that also had sponsors. We had an online piece where we had, advertisers and digital sponsors. And then we had just advertisers who are like advertisers/sponsors who paid us to create activations for them. So that was like a B2B, B2C. So we had so many different revenue streams. We also had a membership at the time. And so we really had to kind of get everything in order and show them that this is how much money each of these revenue streams are bringing in. This is the growth. Here are the contracts that we have for the rest of the year. Here's what our contract looks like with Target, which that was, like I said, that was why they reached out to me. And so we had to really get into a lot of detail with the Target situation. And then I put together a deck for them that basically was a snapshot of the business and the history, but about where the business can go. And it was basically like, here's where we are now. Here's where I want to take it. And here's how we're going to get here and what I need from you. And so that was kind of the big thing that I had to go. I went in October of 2018. It was a secret too. No one on my team, I had a team of 10. No one knew.
Okay. You didn't tell anybody. Okay.
I wasn't supposed to. So like we were at a trade show all together and I was like, I got to go to California after. I mean, like I couldn't lie to them. Like they knew, like it was like my life was on social media. Like I couldn't lie. And so I was just like, oh, I'm meeting with someone who possibly wants to invest in us. And so that was really stressful, that piece of it, because my team was like my friends, my family. I was just texting with some of them this morning. We still are very close. So I had to go out to California and present this deck and meet everyone. And, then they ended up making me an offer. And then there was like a lot of back and forth. It was kind of quick. The other thing too is that, I mean, I could talk about this all day, was that like, I didn't have a physical product. So these people were buying like an idea essentially.
I say, yeah, I want to ask you how the deal is structured. Was it an asset sale? Like, did they take into consideration your email subscribers, the
Yes.
brand? Like, they didn't
Yes.
take.
So
Okay.
it was an asset sale. And then, so basically I got a lump sum upfront, which was for the assets essentially. And so that included like my email list, all of my social media, the website, the trademark, the logo, the brand, like all of that stuff. And then I had a 2-year earnout that was based on EBITDA and growth. And so that was how it was structured.
So I want to pause there because you said your life was on social media and you were tied to the brand. I want the audience to hear that, because just because you are tied to the brand doesn't mean you can't sell the business.
True. It does not mean you can't sell the business. And actually, the people who bought my business, I don't think realized the situation, to be honest, to their detriment. Like,
Yeah.
part of my plan was to get me out of being the face of the business. I put a plan in front of them saying we need to bring in like 10 to 12 moms to be the face of the brand, diverse, different moms from all over the country that are, coming on lives, that are hosting our events online, that are hosting our events in person. It can't just be me anymore. And they didn't do that. They like didn't want to. And that was a big part of why I essentially left, because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm so sick of talking about strollers. Right. So like, so yes, you can sell a business where you are a part of it. However, my recommendation would be to try to have that differential where you're not
Start now.
a part of it, because it would have made leaving a lot easier for me. It would have made a lot of things a lot easier for me. And that was a big part of my inner turmoil when I was leaving, was like, I'm the face of this and I feel like I'm abandoning people. And so when I left, a big part of why it took so long for me to leave, it was like 6 months of back and forth with the lawyers, was one, I didn't have an employee contract. The company claimed they didn't do them. So I could have left at any time, which was also not smart of them because I was the face of the company.
So they bought you out and then didn't have you sign a contract to stay on for any set period of time.
No, it was like a 2-year earnout. So it behooved me to stay. But like, if I would have seen that the company was doing amazing, I didn't have to necessarily stay. So that was like the big piece of when I was leaving, was that I didn't want to let anyone down. So there was a lot of back and forth, because I felt like if I didn't have an agreement in place where I could announce that I was leaving, they would have just kind of cut me out and I would have disappeared. And I didn't want to do that to my community, like for them. Like I didn't want to abandon them. It took a really long time for us to get to a place where we were in agreement about how this was going to look and what it was going to look like when I left, purely so I could make one. They allowed me to make one Instagram announcement on the page.
That's it.
That was it. Leading up to that day for months, when I would go on our Instagram stories, I would say, follow me on Lindsay Pinchuck, make sure that like I would do things like that, but it was like kind of like a very short runway of time that, like, because I couldn't say I was leaving, there was no immediacy in me doing that. But so that it really was complicated because I was the face of the brand.
Yeah. How are you feeling during this time? I think I can say this personally, and again, speak for some of our audience and clients. It's scary, right? Like, your ego, your life is wrapped around in this business. How are you feeling at this moment?
In the moment of me when I'm leaving, or
when you're leaving?
Okay. Yeah. So I was really scared. I was really upset. I was angry because things just didn't go the way that I had wanted them to go, the way that they painted the picture that they were going to go. I felt just like really deceived, and I felt taken advantage of, to be honest. And probably can't get into that's probably too much, but I'm going to say that because I want people to understand and know that, and I went through this like period of mourning. It probably lasted from the time I told my immediate boss. It was probably like in January of 21. I said, I think I want an exit. And she didn't believe me. And she actually kept putting me off. She kept like ignoring me. It was right after Memorial Day, or right before Memorial Day. I said to her, I used her name, and I said, I'm leaving on July 23rd. I said, so here's what we need to do. And I said, and these are your options. And I still think she like didn't really believe that I was going to walk away. Like no one thought I was going to walk away. So I had all of those feelings. And then on top of it, there was a lot of stress and anxiety because I was being ignored. I was not being answered. I wasn't being given answers for what I wanted. And I was scared that I was just going to have to walk away on July 23rd and that was it. And I mean, it was dumb because they didn't even know the Instagram password. So like that, the whole thing was like.
So did they think you weren't going to leave because the money was too good or
the money wasn't good, but I think they thought that like I would never leave this company because it was my baby. And like, we're just going to keep stringing her along, which they would say to me, like, we're going to give you this or we're going to give you that. And like, there was just a lot of back and forth with the lawyers and we couldn't come to an agreement. Like I offered to stay through the end of the year if they gave me a certain amount of money and they said, we don't pay people to leave. And so I said, okay, well, but like I have the whole business in my head. So I don't know what you want from me. Then they wanted me to be a consultant. I gave them my rate. They came back and they said, we'll give you half. So I said, no, I mean, it was like a lot of like back and forth. And I think, but at the end, what ended up happening was, I don't know if I've ever even shared this story. The night before July 23rd. So on July 22nd, we had a call with the lawyers at 4 p.m. Central Time. So it was 2 p.m. their time. The lawyers are in a pissing match with each other. They're two men, big egos, and I said, hey, like, stop. And I just said, hey, just stop. And I said, look, I said to the attorney of the company, I said, I don't want your job. That's not why I'm here. I said, I don't want your job. I want to be able to do right by my community, by my employees, by my brand, by my partners. And I said, so here's the deal. You're either going to give me X, Y, and Z because they were actually trying to like supersede my sale contract with this new contract. And I said, so either we're going to do it like this or I'm just going to leave tomorrow. And that's it.
You just
were like, well, no, I didn't just leave. He said, well, I need more time. I said, you're out of time. I said, it's been months. Yeah. I said, you're out of time. I'm taking my kids to camp tomorrow and this is not hanging over my head. And by 7 p.m. that day, I had a contract with everything I'd asked for and been asking for the last 4 months that we spent so much money and time on. So I signed the contract. I ended up consulting for them for about 10 weeks after I left. Like I took vacation the next week and then I consulted for them for like 10 weeks, 10 hours a week. And then I was done. It just took so much to get there. And it was so unnecessary.
Did you have to stay on after the business sold? I mean, they didn't have an agreement. You chose to continue to be part of the community.
Correct. So I did not have to stay on because they didn't do an employee agreement, but I chose to stay on as an at-will employee. And I had a salary, a nice 6-figure salary. And, so it wasn't like a bad deal. Like I was getting paid to more money than I paid myself to do what I love to do. And it was really when I stopped loving it and stopped being happy doing it was when I decided I need to look at my other options.
All right, let's talk about the new business because like I said, there's so much identity wrapped up in that. How did you decide that this was going to be the new business and how long did it take you?
For the whole summer that I was working on the exit, like I really couldn't think much about anything else. And so it was really scary, to be honest. And I felt like that 10-week cushion that I was working for them was a good cushion for me to like really think about what I wanted to do next. And I knew I just wanted to start taking clients and people had part of why I left when I did also was I had been approached by many brands who were like, can we hire you to do this work? And they were offering to pay me a lot more than I was making. And so that was a big eye opener for me. So when I left, I went on vacation, I came back and I sent an email to everyone I knew, which I always recommend to anyone and everyone when they make a change in any part of their business or their life. I sent an email to everyone I knew. I said, I left Bump Club. I'm going to take clients now. This is how I can help businesses. I can help them with their content strategy, with their marketing strategy, with their social media strategy. At the time, it was kind of more than what I offer now because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Within a few weeks, I had 2 clients and I just started working on those clients. And then from there, I just kind of continued to grow. Like there were people who approached me who couldn't afford me for consulting, but they were like, can I hire you as a coach? And so I created a coaching program where like I coach female founders on building their business through organic marketing strategies. And I tell them exactly what to do and how to do it. And then I started teaching a class that I created, which I'm in the throes of trying to figure out what I want to do with that class right now. And then in the middle of all of it, I knew I had wanted to start a podcast. And so I started Dear Found Her, which is my podcast. What ended up what's happened with the podcast is it's become my biggest marketing vehicle for business. I mean, for all of my business. Like many guests I have on have hired me to do projects for their big companies. There are many listeners who have referred me to people or who have hired me for coaching or have taken my class. So it really has run the gamut. It has expanded my network. Like, I can't even tell you, like the people who are like, I'm texting, I am like, what? Like, I can't even believe that like I have these people in my contact list that like I can text them like regularly. It's crazy. What's happening now and what I'm seeing happen now is the network has become so big that I'm leveraging these relationships with people from the podcast, with my clients. So like I have a client who wanted to do like a sampling program and she wanted to reach like moms with girls. I reached out to every mom with a girl who's been on my program and said, can we send you product? Like it's like really coming full circle in terms of how I'm utilizing this network that I'm building, not just for the podcast. And so it's really coming full circle now.
How does it feel to be the face of another business?
I'm totally fine with this. Like, I want to help people. And I've always said, like, that's kind of like how I started Bump Club. Like, I wanted to help people. I've always been a connector. I'm just doing it now.
You're naturally a connector.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing it now in a way that works for me right now. And I think when I left Bump Club and started this, I said, if I could help one founder, just one, to like not make some of the mistakes that I made and learn from what my experience was, then I've done my job. And so that's just kind of how I feel about the situation. And funny enough, like I was kind of always like, oh, I'm never gonna have to do an event again. And we are starting to do events.
I heard that on your podcast.
So, but like, I'm doing it a little bit differently this time, and I'm gonna prove the concept first before, and we're doing it very low key. I'm hosting networking events in Chicago, and we're gonna see how it goes. And that's it. We're just gonna see how it goes.
All right. You said if you could, tell one person a lesson that you learned, what would be the one lesson? Like, what is the one lesson from all of that you learned?
I think that my biggest lesson and takeaway, there's so many, but if I had to sell my business over again, I would have done more due diligence into them. I would have maybe shopped it around a little at the same time. And I felt pressure, like they were rushing me because they wanted to get the deal done. And it's funny, I interviewed Jill Smokler from Scary Mommy after the fact for the podcast. She made a comment that I often share because it really resonated with me. And she said, if someone's pursuing you for sale, the ball is in your court. Do not feel rushed and pressured by them because they want you. And like, if I would have known that then I probably would have slowed things down a little bit and just done more due diligence, because the culture of that company was not one that really mirrored me. And hindsight's 2020. I don't know that I would have not sold. I don't know. I don't regret selling. People ask me that all the time. I do not, because I firmly believe that experience put me where I am today. Yeah. But I would have just done more due diligence, and I would have made sure that there was more in the contract than they allowed. And I would have pushed for it more, but I just really wanted to sell it. And I really just wanted to have my hands clean of it. And so, you have to make choices, right?
Letting that fatigue get the better. Like picturing, you're like running a marathon at mile 20 and you're just so tired that you'll give anything to get out.
I signed the final paper because there was something we were negotiating on. I signed the final paper in the car at the grocery store, going to my New Year's Eve party at like 5 p.m. on December 31st. The deal closed on January 1st. It was like the 11th hour.
Yeah. These days, you do a lot of talking about organic marketing, partnerships. Clearly, we can see why that resonates with you at such a deep level. But if somebody isn't utilizing partnerships and that organic marketing, what's like a really easy way that they can start to dip their toes in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that don't overcomplicate it. And so the way that I categorize things for my clients is low involvement, medium involvement, and high involvement partnerships. I just did a podcast on this. And the involvement word is your involvement and how much time and effort it's going to take. But also like that involvement piece, I do think has a direct impact on what you get out of it. Okay. So like, I do think that like you should eventually look into some high involvement partnerships, but to get started, very easy things. Do Instagram lives. Go live on Instagram with someone that your community wants to hear. It is so easy. All it requires is for you to set a time in a day and to go on Instagram for 15 to 20 minutes, and everyone wins. Do an email swap. I actually have 2 brands right now that they literally reach the same exact target consumer. They're not competing products. And so this is really important, actually, how to do this. Don't just like take an asset of theirs and send it out.
Yeah.
You want to be the one who introduces the person. So if you're going to swap emails, you want to set up an email that says, we'd love for you to meet brand X, Y, and Z, who we love. They're female founded. They do this. Oh, and by the way, here's a discount code exclusive for our community.
And in your voice.
In your voice. And allow them to do the same. If someone's on your email list, they trust you and they want to hear from you. So don't just like quotes, even though you're not selling the email list, don't just like let someone send an email blast, like send it from you organically. So an email swap is a really, really easy opportunity as well. And then the other thing too, that like, this isn't necessarily partnerships, but it's leveraging other people's communities, is on social media, make sure that you're sharing content of other people's and tagging them. Make sure that you can do simple content like my favorite beauty products right now, my favorite podcasts right now, my favorite books right now, and tag the host, tag the authors. People will reshare that. And ultimately, even though it's not a set partnership, you're borrowing their community, because when people tag me or my podcast, I always share it, always. And so then you're getting eyeballs on you. And I don't just share it. I say like, thank you. And I tag the person so that my community sees and will click through and go to their profile as well. Just be very thoughtful on social media. And I think that that's a very, very easy place to start. I think I wrote that I was going to give this to you, which I am. Like I have a download that's 30 plus simple for partnerships. So well, you can link it in your show notes, but all of these and so many more are there. And it's just getting started, because once you start with partnerships, then like I said, you could take that partnership and say, oh, we've partnered with so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. Would you like to partner with us? Oftentimes with Bump Club, what I would do is like, we were working with the Daily Method, which is a bar class. And so then I would reach out to Equinox Fitness, and I would reach out to Soul Cycle and other people in the fitness realm. They saw I was working with Daily Method. They then wanted to work with us. And so it's being very thoughtful and strategic about how you leverage the experiences that you put together.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
No problem.
I think we tend to complicate it, and we're waiting for, I've been calling it the Hollywood moment. Some people call it overnight success, but I call it like this movie star moment where all stars align. It's the kiss on the bridge over the sunset. Like, it's not how it works in business, in anything. Not when we're looking at our numbers, not with the partnerships, not in the strategic planning. Like, it's the small actions over time. 9 years later, we've partnered with so many amazing people, but we did it one partnership at a time.
Right.
Is there anything today that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
No, I mean, I think like the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. And, you know, like I said it early on in this conversation, like I'm not good at numbers. So guess what? Danielle and her team, they help me and they're amazing. If you're not good at marketing, find someone. It doesn't have to be me, but like find someone to help you. Like don't just brush it under the rug. Like these are vital parts of your business. And also to what Danielle said, don't overcomplicate things. I will tell you that from a marketing standpoint, the most effective strategies are usually right in front of you. And I mean, and I will tell you, and I can share this, I'll share this very quickly. When I started Bump Club, I was like, well, how am I going to find pregnant people? Well, at 13 weeks, pregnant people usually go get a pair of jeans. So I went to maternity boutiques in downtown Chicago, which sadly no longer exists. And I asked them, can you please put my cards out at your cash register? We ended up hosting a dinner a couple months later. And I would say over 50% of the people found out about the dinner from the cards at the cash register. And that became a very vital part of our marketing strategy. And it was just so logical. You know, so like,
that is simple. It's old school.
Very old school.
That's old school.
And it doesn't, that type of thing doesn't necessarily work in every situation, but there is that thing for every situation. And so you just have to be logical and think strategically and know your customer and know where they are and meet them there.
That's perfect to end on. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the other amazing guests that we have on the show. We have actually had such an amazing response to the podcast that we are going to 2 episodes a week. One will be a solo episode where we are talking about ways that you can implement knowing your numbers into your business. And the second will be with a guest so that we can have more people on the show sharing their money mindset strategies. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you need help in your business, you heard Lindsay, she is not a numbers person. And she knew in her business that she needed help because during that due diligence process, she was required to be able to give financial statements and very specific financial data and contracts. So it is so important, whether we're selling our business or just filing our taxes at the end of the year, that we have clean and accurate bookkeeping. We want to use that information to manage and grow our businesses. So if you need help, I want you to go to kickstartaccountinginc.com and book a call. You'll talk to my team and we'll see if we're a good fit to be able to help you. All right, until next time.